The Bible talks a lot about the transformation that we experience when we become Christians. And some of us have pretty dramatic conversion stories about how Jesus changed our lives. But I bet for a lot of us, that's not the case. Now, that's not to say that going from death to life isn't dramatic, but for those of us who don't have an intense conversion story, how should we think about this concept of Jesus transforming our lives? Well, I think in two ways: decision and discipleship. First, there's the moment of decision where we commit to following Jesus. At that moment, even though we might not feel anything, we become, like Paul says later in Galatians chapter 6, a new creation. We literally move from death to life. It's a moment we switch paths. The road we were on was eventually leading to death, leading us away from God and away from the abundant life He has for us. And while we might not have felt immediately different, in an instant, the trajectory of our lives changed. There's a lyric of a song that says, "I'm sailing on a ship that's bound for life." And that's the new path we're on, a path bound for life and for purpose. But it works itself out in the day-to-day discipleship process, where we become more like Jesus every day through the work of the Holy Spirit. And even though the process might seem slower than we like, there is a kind of transformation that's happening. And sometimes it's only when you look back that you see how far you've come in this new path. We're in California, so maybe some of you have had the same experience I've had while surfing. You paddle out in a certain spot and you begin surfing. But then, a few hours later, you look around and you realize that the tide has pushed you 100 yards down the beach. And all you did was commit yourself to the water, and then this deep, powerful force pulls you along and you end in a different place than you started. What we have to do is commit ourselves to the water, to place ourselves in a position of trust, to listen and be obedient to the work of the Holy Spirit. And we'll find that the process of becoming a new creation is taking place. I read about this study that talked about how our bodies lose and reproduce cells throughout our lifetimes. Did you know that on a cellular level, most of your body is completely new every 7 to 15 years? For example, you have new skin every 2 to 4 weeks. And a new skeleton every 10 years. Isn't that crazy? But the thing is, these cells die off and reproduce at different rates based on how much they're used. And it's the same with our spiritual lives. Even though we might not always see the change, there is a transformation that happens as we have encounters with Jesus. And the more we exercise our spiritual muscles, the quicker this regeneration happens. Romans 12:2 says that we should allow God to do this transformation in us by changing the way we think. So this week, let's spend some time reflecting on how God is transforming us, whether that's in big ways or small. Ask yourself, how am I changing the way I think? Remind yourself of the decision you made to follow Christ, and reflect on who you are becoming and God's faithfulness to continue the work He began the moment you decided to change the trajectory of your life by placing your trust in Jesus. So be encouraged this week. The process of discipleship takes time, but you are being transformed. The power of the tide is pulling you in a new direction, and you are not the person you used to be.